Back with another Savage stream. Thanks everybody for tuning in and liking my videos, commenting on my videos, and sharing and subscribing to my channel and all that cool stuff. You guys are awesome. You all know that. I still haven't gotten through all of my comments, but I'm working on it. It takes a little bit of time. Yeah, I appreciate all the comments and everything. Man, there is a lot going on in the crypto space. I didn't stream last night. It was a little bit overwhelming with all the stuff that was going on. I was a little bit down, you know how it gets. I'm kind of an empath, so I'm a little bit emotional sometimes whenever it comes to, you should never be emotional about like crypto market and money and stuff like that. And I'm not really emotional like, oh my gosh, you know, the sky's falling, but just like, cause I want it to do so well and it's frustrating whenever it doesn't, right? So I didn't stream last night. I did stream Monday night. We did the breakdown for the concealed mining profits for the previous week. And then tomorrow is the 20th. So we will be covering the previous month's profit breakdown for the shared rigs, the co-owned rigs. And still, even with what's going on, it still looks like it's going to be a pretty good month. Although we are mining to NiceHash, and I'm not sure that I'll be able to withdraw. So we'll see how that works out. There's been some problems with NiceHash, and I guess they had a security event yesterday, I believe. Red Panda Mining did a good video on it, breaking it down. I think Brandon Coin did a video on it as well, so check those out if you want to learn more about the NiceHash thing. I was going to do a video on it, but you know, if other YouTubers have already done it, I typically don't address stuff like that. So I try to do things that other YouTubers aren't necessarily doing. So that's just my thing. What is up, everybody? Yeah, thanks for tuning in. You guys are awesome. So let's get into this a little bit here because we do have a lot to cover, but I do have some like articles and junk like that, and I think that's where we're going to go with this. So we went through 5 or 6 months of basically, let me know in the comments too, or in the chat there, whether or not the sound is good and all that stuff. The mic is a little bit far away from me, but I think you should be able to hear me. So give me a thumbs up over there. I'll check the chat in a minute. I'm not going to watch the chat the whole time because I'll get distracted. But we went through basically 5 or 6 months of a lot of real positive cryptocurrency news. And, you know, we got to an all-time high of, I think it ended up being, for Bitcoin anyway, it ended up being about 65,000 depending on the exchange. So that was a huge run up. I mean, 5 to 6 months of pretty much positive news, positive statements, positive tweets, positive things happening in the space. And that got us to that all-time high. Elon, you know, kind of started the whole thing off a little bit. At least he prolonged the bull run a little bit by saying that Tesla would accept Bitcoin BTC for payments to pay for their cars, and they were going to actually add BTC to Tesla's balance sheet, and that was like $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. So that was like another huge impact to the overall cryptocurrency space. It was showing a lot of credibility. It was showing a lot of confidence. And everybody was jumping in, and everybody, you know, it was great. You had a lot of things going on with, you know, the Wall Street Bets guys. That was a little bit early on. You had things going on with Dogecoin. So and that also was a little bit of Elon's fault as well. So you had all these things that just kept happening over and over and over. Plus, not to mention the development of all the projects. And I mentioned this in a tweet, how, you know, basically 3 years ago, if you were looking at a project that started 3 years ago in 2018 and you thought that it was a solid project like Conceal, or there are plenty of other ones that started in 2018. I think that even some of the bigger ones like Polkadot was huge in starting in 2015, I believe. You had or 2018. Cardano had already been around, but that one was starting to pick up speed in 2018 as well. So there were other big projects, but even the smaller ones like Conceal, you know, you got to give them about 3 years before they really start producing, you know, solid features and product and all that stuff. And you know, so a lot of that was coming to fruition too where there was a lot of these really great developments being released in a steady stream since, last summer. So you had this huge run up, which was great for everybody in the space for a long time there. And there were even like many of the firms, the money enabling or money transfer firms like PayPal, other companies were enabling cryptocurrency payment capabilities on their platforms. That was a lot of positive news with that. There were even some Wall Street banks and firms that were setting up crypto investing capabilities for their clients, whether it's not really hedge funds, but, like just investment funds. And in April, really recently, Coinbase went public, public IPO, and they went through a direct listing. And, but unfortunately, that was kind of the signal for the local top, because on that day, I believe, is whenever BTC hit its all-time high of 65,000. I think that was the most recent all-time high, or actually that was the all-time high, I believe, was on that day, if I remember right. But I think even on that day, that like started the drawback, because you saw Coinbase go from like 400 down to 220 or something like that pretty quickly. I don't know. I don't follow the stock market very closely, so I don't know what it's at now. I think it's less than that, but I haven't checked in quite some time. So you got to look at this. Like, we've been on this huge rocket ship ride for, basically since November, right? This has been almost straight up since November. So it's been crazy. It's been a crazy 6 months. We went from being under $1 trillion market cap to over 2.6 trillion in 5 short months. We more than doubled in 5 short months, and that's insane. And not even to mention that we're still up 200% since September, right? Even with the drawback right now. So yeah, I'm still okay. I mean, it sucks to see your portfolio. Mine's down like 50. I think it's actually, let's see, it's about 47% down. Now, like I said in the chat just a minute ago, it's not, you haven't lost anything until you sell it, right? So, but seeing that drawdown, and that after having so many months of euphoric, rises, and it's tough. It is tough. There's no doubt. But it's also kind of expected. There were many people that were predicting something like this, and even I did not predict. It's easy to predict. Obviously, hindsight 2020. But you see these types in previous bull runs. You see these types of drawbacks, drawdowns. Pullbacks, whatever you want to call them. Down, 30-40% range. This one's a little bit scary because it's even more than that. But I think there's a lot of other factors at play, which we're going to talk about. So let's press on. Let me get rid of that thing there. Let's see. So yeah, we've been basically straight up, since November. So there's a few events or catalysts that's actually causing this pullback that I think is causing this downturn. It kind of started. It started with Elon Musk, okay? Whenever he tweeted out that, now this is a quick turnaround for him, because I think it was in January or February whenever the tweet came out about Tesla buying, Bitcoin, and on their balance sheet and accepting Bitcoin and all that stuff. I think that what happened here is he got some pressure, probably from the government, for the green energy situation there, credits and all that stuff that happens, along with the board of directors for his company, for Tesla. Probably all of this, they basically said, look, you're gonna have to fix this. You're gonna have to pull back, because right now there's a lot of FUD out there, or information in their eyes, about Bitcoin and the energy consumption, which has been debunked a gazillion times by the smartest people in the space. It's so ridiculous for people to say that, like, Bitcoin uses so much energy, and it's constantly being, people are looking for cheaper alternatives to it. It incentivizes cheap electricity, right? Renewables and all that stuff. So not to mention the whole issue with it only consumes like 0.03% of the wasted energy that the whole globe produces, right? You know, that all energy producing production on the whole planet. So, and then, you know, that's less than what is wasted, 0.03%, something like that, of what is actually wasted. So it's just not a lot. So, and anyway, whenever you know, if you're talking about Bitcoin and the energy usage, and if you try to compare it to like banking, and people who try to compare it, try to use like per transaction energy cost, that's nonsense. That's total nonsense. And then if you don't compare it to like the banking industry, how much does the banking industry, all of it, use on a daily basis to run their electricity and you know, their buildings, and how much does all this cost? Because, you know, Bitcoin doesn't necessarily need a brick and mortar building like a lot of financial places do. So there, you just can't compare the two. There's not a comparison that you can make. So you know, whenever everyone can participate in Bitcoin if they wanted to, you know, you can't really do that with the financial system because there are unbanked out there, but even the unbanked can participate in Bitcoin. So anyway, that comparison is nonsense. But I think that Elon got a lot of pressure from the company, which, you know, it tells you something, and the thing it tells me is that he can't be trusted when it comes to his tweets and all that. You just can't, because he's going to be influenced by his company. He's got a company to run. So, you know, and then not to mention like this whole SpaceX thing and launching rockets and talking about Bitcoin. I mean, come on. Bitcoin's energy use is total nonsense. All right. So, yeah. And I really thought that he was pretty smart up until basically this tweet right here. Right about somewhere down here. Yeah, right here. Working with Doge devs to improve system transaction efficiency. Potentially promising. I mean, come on. I don't know what to say about it. Talking about carbon tax down here. He believes in crypto. I mean, this was like the beginning of like, good grief, man. And then just he was on SNL, and whenever he was on Saturday Night Live, you know, they kept the skit was on Weekend Update, I believe. I don't watch it. I don't watch SNL, but I saw that particular part of it, and I did see where he, you know, the skit was about pressing him for what Dogecoin actually was, and then Michael Che, I think is his name, he ended up saying, he kept asking like, what is Doge, what is Dogecoin, you know, and Elon was explaining it, but in a semi-technical way, so he just kept asking, but what is Dogecoin, you know. It was not that funny, but, you know, SNL hasn't been funny since the 70s, so, you know, it was that part was really expected. But, you know, he ended up saying that it was a hustle, right? Which some people suspected that already. But, you know, he says it's a hustle on SNL. Then he comes out with this tweet saying that he's working with Doge devs, which, you know, there are Doge devs out there, but they're not active as far as I know. And, you know, anyway, there's people that can contribute, but I don't think that they're working with Elon Musk, unless he is one of the Doge devs, but I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I just, you know, it was whenever he was pumping everything and doing all that positive information or positive comments about Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space, it was easy to like him, easy to get behind him, but man, yeah, he blew it. There's no way that I'll ever, with regards to cryptocurrency, yeah, he won't come back from this, in my opinion. It's going to be like the the new John McAfee or whatever, for the crypto space. It's unfortunate, because it was nice having him here, but yeah, too bad. I'm done. So, because the tweet and how he was talking about this one actually was the really bad one. This looked like a prepared tweet or a statement maybe to investors about why they changed their stance on Bitcoin, due to energy conservation, talking about the whole coal situation, all that. This was a huge amount of FUD, and it was actually it was basically piggybacking on a lot of other FUD that was already out there about energy consumption in Bitcoin. It seems like this happens every year, where someone gets it going, someone gets that started, where they start talking about the energy consumption of Bitcoin being more than some small country, but there's so many things in the world that consume more electricity than small countries. Okay, so it's just a stupid comparison. And anyway, so yeah, this is what kind of started the whole thing. This was the beginning of the snowball. Now, what I worry about with the whole Elon thing is he probably brought a lot of new users into the space, a lot of new crypto users and traders, whatever you want to call them, people buying Dogecoin and Shiba and all that stuff. And if they got in, 2 weeks ago, this hasn't been a good 2 weeks for them, right? And it's a shame that, he's got 55 million. I don't want to make this whole stream about Elon, but he's got 55 million followers on Twitter. So, he has a huge impact, and it's wielding a lot of power for him to throw this type of stuff out there. I get the feeling that he's kind of he's a jokester kind of thing, but I don't think he fully understands the impact, because there are people getting hurt, like really hurt, and it's smaller investors, right? Like people that work 9 to 5, people that maybe aren't working, maybe they're on unemployment right now because of COVID and all that stuff, and it's really irresponsible in my opinion. But all right, so I don't want to make this all about Elon, but that's my thoughts on Elon. All right, let's see what else we got going on here. I do have another tweet up here from him. Yeah, this is the one I was trying to highlight a while ago. Okay, so let me close both of these, because I don't want to talk about Elon anymore. Let's talk about some other things that could impact the price of Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space as a whole. You also have JP Morgan. I guess they did a report to probably insiders, I would imagine, some type of a report that they do that said that institutional investors are actually, they seem to be moving out of Bitcoin and into gold. Now, take this with a grain of salt. This is JP Morgan talking about cryptocurrency and gold. I would not put 100% faith in this. This is just one of those things that gets said whenever, it's just like anybody else that is against Bitcoin in general. They will bring up stuff like this and, try to pile on and make it look like something that's not. But this highlights the fact that there is a risk. There's a significant risk to having institutions in our crypto space. This is the risk. They have funding. They have a lot of potential money coming into the market, and they have enough to actually move the market. So this is super important to remember whenever we the crypto community back in the day were like, man, we can't wait till institutions get here. Even way back then, and I say way back then, 2018, even then, I was saying, I don't know if we really want institutions in here, because they were the ones that originally stopped the bull run in 2018 or 2017 into 2018 by the whole CME futures being implemented. I believe that's right. So because of that, they kind of, and there were those folks that run that the CME futures were saying that they were going to tame Bitcoin. That was like their the phrase that they used, and they did. I mean, it went from 20,000 down to 3, and but just keep in mind that as these institutions get involved, they do have capital, so they can actually move the markets on their own, or they have the potential to move the markets on their own. So it's one of the risks that we have whenever we we want, or we allow, I guess you could say, not that we allow it because it's all trustless and permissionless and all that, but whenever institutions get involved, then you kind of see things like this happening, right? And not to mention the fact that typically institutions aren't as well versed in crypto in general, right? So they have advisors and all that stuff going on, but whenever they see the other things going on, like the energy FUD, the Elon FUD, all that stuff, and I'm saying FUD, it's fear, uncertainty, and doubt is what that stands for. And whenever these institutional investors or the managers, the fund managers, see these types of things happen, and they're like, it's like risk off is what it's referred to as, basically where you start taking money that used to be in crypto and you're seeing all this news and negative headlines and all that stuff, and you pull it out of the crypto fund and put it into gold or other products, right? So this is just kind of, this is what happens, right? Whenever you get institutions involved in this. Some other things, there was some, I don't have an article about it, but there's also a Tether situation. So the thing about Tether, okay, so Tether USD, I think it's TUSD, right? That started, I don't know when that actually started. Was it it was a long time ago, 2013, 2014, something like that. And ever since they began, it has been a speculation or rumor that, they don't have the reserves. Think of it like this. If you were early in crypto, say 2013, 2014, and you were intelligent, you could actually create a cryptocurrency, right? You had the developers or whatever available, and you just had an aha moment, like an epiphany, and you were like, if I create a coin, a stable coin that I can buy BTC with on an exchange, if I get the exchange to support the stable coin, then I kind of have, and I can create this stable coin on my own, internally, and say that I'm bringing in US dollars to back it. So like a 1-to-1, 1 USDT, I said TUSD earlier, USDT to 1 US dollar, for example, 1-to-1 ratio. You could long story short, you could trick the system, right? You could create more Tether and buy more Bitcoin than you actually have in reserves. Actually have the equivalent US dollar value or fiat currency value that you have. And that's risky, it's dangerous, and there's a lot of people in the crypto space that say that that's what's happening. And even this most recent Tether FUD that's out there is because they released a statement or an article. There was an article, report, whatever, written saying that I think it was a large portion of their reserves was not in USD, but it was in crypto assets like Bitcoin and others. Well, okay, but that's not how Tether was supposed to work. Tether was supposed to be 1-to-1 backed by US dollar. If it's not backed by US dollar, but you're just backing it with things that you bought with Tether that you created out of thin air, how is that backed? You see what I'm saying? That's a huge amount of FUD, and that is something that these institutions and JP Morgan and all these fund managers are definitely going to look at that, because that is huge, right? Now, if they would have came out with a report that said, here's our reserves, here's our bank account, it's got X amount of dollars, and they could have, even if they were, here's the thing, you're going to get me on a rant, but the thing is that even if they cheated early on, right? Even if they cheated early on and created more Tether than they actually had reserves for, and they bought Bitcoin way back then with that Tether that they created, they could have fixed it all between then and now by the increase in value of Bitcoin, right? And they could have sold and replenished, that 1-to-1 ratio for USDT and US dollars. I think, if I'm thinking about this correctly, it would make sense that they could do that because the value has increased so much, especially recently, right? So this run up to 65,000, they could have fixed it, and they could have had that USD backing of USDT. And if they didn't do that, I don't know why they wouldn't. I'm not going to say, it's greed, but maybe it's greed. I don't know. You tell me. Tell me in the chat what you think about that. All right, I'm gonna check the chat real quick. I don't want to get over here too distracted over here. See if anybody's, nobody's really tagging me, so you guys are chatting it up over there. That's good. Keep the conversation going over there. So that pretty much wraps up the Tether FUD. Now, some other things that have happened. You had the tax day, okay? So why is tax day important? Well, tax day was Monday, this past Monday, May 17th. It's normally April 17th or 15th, April 15th, but I guess because of COVID, they extended it out, I guess. I don't know. So it was this past Monday. Why does that matter to the price of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency market in general? Well, if there are traders that have been trading and making profit and they have to pay their capital gains taxes, then a lot of times they don't have any funding in like a checking account, right, to pay for their capital gains taxes. A lot of times it's all in crypto. It's all wrapped up in crypto all the time. So they have to sell the crypto in order to pay their capital gains taxes. And whenever you're an active trader and you're not just holding, those capital gains taxes, I believe in the US it goes from, I want to say it's 30% if it's a short-term capital gain. I think it's a year or possibly 2 years. I think it's a year. If you hold it for a year, if you hold the asset for a year, it goes down to 15% or something like that. I think they're changing this laws. I'm not a tax guy. Don't take any of that, for fact. But I think it's something like that. It's somewhere around 15% if you hold it for a long term, and I think a long term is a year or more. So if you're an active trader and you're always swapping and going back and forth between fiat and crypto or whatever, or crypto to crypto, however you do it, then your capital gains taxes can be a lot. It can be like 30%, something like that. Maybe even more than that. I think it's 30%, and then they're looking at possibly changing it to higher, if I remember right. So anyway, so that's another reason. That's just we're just going to go through the list of all the reasons, all this negative news that's in the crypto space, and that is definitely one of them is tax day. And with the whole meme coin, Dogecoin and Shiba and all that, and the DeFi frenzy, you got Robinhood app, you got all these different things going on. There were a huge amount of increase of traders in the space. So this combined with tax day, is at least, I say this all the time. People like to point, human nature is to point to like one thing that causes some event. Like, everybody likes to blame Elon for this, right? That one tweet of Elon's that caused all this. It's not one thing, guys. It's a lot of different things. It's a whole host of different things, and it's unfortunate that it's just constant. This past couple of weeks has been nonstop negative press, negative news about crypto, nonstop every day for 2 weeks straight now, and we're seeing the results of that. But the increase in traders, crypto traders, on Robinhood grew 600% since last year, at the end of last year. So you're seeing that these people have to pay taxes potentially, right? And that plays into this. That plays into the whole thing. So you got Robinhood growing 600%. You got Coinbase growing. I think they grew something like, it wasn't as much. I think it was like 64% since last March. Okay, so in a year, their number of users grew 64%. So that's huge. You know, and typically you're going to say that Coinbase is probably US based. So these folks, these new folks, have to pay taxes if they are actively trading. So that's even more that goes on top of everything else that we've already talked about. You also have 76%. Now, Cash App isn't really like trading so much, but there would be people on here that are buying and selling, Bitcoin, and they're which was an amazing year for them. And it's crazy to even think about this, but 76% of Cash App's revenue was from crypto, was from Bitcoin, the sales of Bitcoin. That's crazy. You know, this is a popular app just for the whole transferring of cash, you know, and for it to have 76% of the revenue off of Bitcoin is crazy. So again, not necessarily a trading app, but you can see how this can all play into the overall scheme of things. There's also been a few regulatory concerns. Like back in March, you had the CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. They came out and said that they were investigating Binance. Obviously CZ came back and said it's not a big deal, this is all FUD or whatever. But they are investigating Binance to make sure that they weren't allowing US customers to trade. That was one of their prime objectives of this investigation. Now, how they're going to go about this, the whole VPN situation and all that, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to discover, but you have to remember that whenever fund managers and institutions are looking at stuff like this, this can spook investors and fund managers. This can spook people that haven't been in the space very long. And like I just pointed out, there's been a huge increase in people in the space. So all this plays in together. This is not good news, even though it's probably mainly FUD and not really anything to really worry about. But whenever you compound all this stuff on top of each other, layer over layer over layer of bad information or bad news or negative news, whatever, it has an impact. Let's bring up the market real quick, just see where we're at here. Okay, so we're at 37 for BTC and 23 for ETH. Man, it's so red. It's so red. It hurts my eyes. Yeah, so a little bit of regulatory concerns as well. You also have things like China banning crypto, or actually banning the financial payment institutions from cryptocurrency business. So this is something that happens, pretty often. I think it happens every couple of years, where a big article, and it's usually very well timed with a already declining market, and you have China coming out and saying that there's some negative news about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general, and that's what has happened here. Basically, I think that this is only a reiteration of a previous law. I don't think that this is anything new. It's just a new release of the same old information that they've been putting out forever. So I think it was in 2017, 2019, and then this year, where there were similar stories. Again, always very well timed. There's also India that's talking about banning crypto. I guess that's coming to the forefront again, where they're actually looking at a full ban kind of situation. I don't have an article about that, but I believe that that's what they were saying. Now, one thing that people can kind of keep an eye on is kind of like a signal. This is a good signal. Is not good in this case, but something to watch is how much Bitcoin or how much crypto goes into exchanges, right? So if you're monitoring this type of activity, you kind of can get a sense for what's going on, because if an exchange has a huge influx inflow of Bitcoin, then typically that means it's going to be sold or traded, right? And basically what has happened here recently, and I know CZ mentioned this as well. Like they were, I don't know if it was on CNBC or what channel, or it seems like it was a video I saw of him saying that Binance has seen a huge influx of Bitcoin deposits on the exchange. Now I've seen some things, whale alerts and stuff like that it seems like a lot of crypto is coming off of exchanges right now, but I think this is a whale fight. Is kind of like what we're seeing here, and some other large players are probably getting involved as well. They always like to buy back a little bit lower, and it's okay for them, and not okay, but it's normal for them to increase the amount of FUD, knowing that they'll just buy it back from the people who panic sell at cheaper prices, and it is what it is. And unfortunately, the market isn't big enough. It's not enough economic mass to really deter stuff like that from happening. You don't have to have a huge amount of money in order to you don't have to have a huge amount of capital or funds to move the market and in whichever direction you want. And eventually we'll get there, but even at the peak at 2.5 trillion, that's really not a humongous market if you look at other financial markets in the world. So you can see how it can be manipulated in many ways. That's why, like, for the most part, buying and holding, buying spot and just holding is probably long term. It's probably the way to go. But there's just so much potential manipulation in there, and it makes it rough. Makes really dark days sometimes. So it looks like there was about 30,000, almost 31,000 of BTC that have inflowed into exchanges in March, and actually no, in April recently. So April, May, and that almost matches what was what the inflows were back in March of 2020. Okay, so this past Monday, it says, was the most in 15 months, which was last March, basically the COVID dump that we saw in March of last year. You just gotta keep in mind that even though it seems like it's a large market, it's really not. I mean, 2.5 trillion. It's only 1.7 trillion now market cap, I believe, something like that. It is still fairly easy to. Actually, it's 1.5. Wow. Okay, so it's going down a little bit, but it is still fairly easy to manipulate. And there are whales out there with thousands and thousands of BTC, and as silly as it sounds, they fight each other, and some of them make fun of the other one because they bought in lower, and they try to force each other to capitulate, and basically what happens is we get caught in the middle. That's why I think that just buying and holding is probably the way to go. So Musk tried to I guess pull us back in. It didn't work with me because I think he's lying here, but basically he tweeted out saying that that Tesla was not selling, and that Tesla has diamond hands like everybody else in the space was saying. And if you believe him, that's fine. I don't, but that's just me. Yeah, we got down to 30,400, it looks like. All right, so what's the bright side of this? Like, what if we were going to look at a bright side? We do have the fact that COVID didn't kill crypto back in March of 2020. That was a year ago, and look at where we have come since then, right? It was all the way down to 3,200 for Bitcoin on that dip last year in March. So that's good news, and that's looking at the bright side. Another thing is a single billionaire couldn't kill crypto either, especially Bitcoin. Maybe the coins that should die might die, like Doge, stuff like that. Not die, but go back to where we think that they all belong. I guess you could say most people think that they belong. So and that just points out another flaw in our crypto space. If one billionaire, if one person can make a statement that drives markets one way or the other, then it's obviously too fragile, right? And we need to be able to shake that stuff off like it's nothing. And the market's just not big enough yet, economic mass wise, in order to absorb those types of negative comments from people that at one time were trusted in the space. So it's just something that we all need to think about. We all need to kind of sit on our hands. In my opinion, sit on our hands, not do much, ride this out. I don't want to make any guesses. I think we'll probably see 30,000 again if I was just to make a wild guess. But I think that there's a potential for a fairly quick turnaround, although the things that are going to kind of lead, I think what will kick off the actual next leg of the bull run and probably pull us out of a sideways chop for quite some time is probably going to happen in July. And that is the EIP 1559 for Ethereum. So why would that matter? Well, on the mining side, obviously it's going to suck. But I still think that it could be better for the value, the underlying asset value, meaning Ethereum. So it might be the catalyst that starts the bull run back up again. I don't know how that's going to work, but it is possible that could be it, because there's so many people, and not miners, but there's so many people in the space, the developers and investors in Ethereum that are really looking forward to that. So it's not going to have any immediate impact on the transaction fees, right? So it might actually end up being, there's no telling, but it might end up being a negative impact, because if the users are expecting a lower transaction fee and they don't get it, then that could be like, oh, well, forget about Ethereum then. We're going to move on to something else. So it could work both ways. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that, because I could see it going both ways. That's really a tough one. But you also have some other things that are coming out, like Taproot on Bitcoin. I know BitSweetTrippin did a video on it, so I'm not going to really rehash that part of it. Check out his video on that. But basically, Taproot on Bitcoin is supposed to increase transaction speed, so it gets more transactions into the blocks because of how it's handling the transactions, especially like multi-sig and those types of transactions that used to take up more space in the block. They're going to take up less space and allow more transactions to be included in a block, in short. And that should increase the transaction speed. Not necessarily, there's not a block time change. It's just more transactions are going to be in each block potentially. So because of that, more transactions are in the block, so it will effectively speed up the transaction speed. It'll also increase privacy and some scalability issues, and probably lower transaction fees for Bitcoin as well. So that's actually a really solid update, and that's like the first major update to Bitcoin in like 4 years. So this one's huge, and there's more to it than that. Check out BitSweetTrippin's video on it. And if you want me to do a Taproot, I was working on a Taproot video about 3 weeks ago. I just never got it off the ground. If you want me to do it, I will. I was going to include like some slideshow information and stuff, so it might be kind of interesting. I don't know. A lot of people don't really like the too technical stuff and getting really down deep in the weeds on updates and projects and stuff, but we'll see. Let me know in the comments or the chat over there. Probably comments, because I'm not looking at chat right now. So what else do we have to look forward to? transaction fee, or yeah, the mining rewards for Ethereum are absolutely through the roof. And I think that yeah, Son of a Tech did a video on this earlier today. Yeah, he released it earlier today about basically why, you know, it's kind of weird that you would see the Ethereum mining, the block rewards, or the, not the block rewards, but the rewards paid to miners increase so much whenever the value of Ethereum decreases. But it makes perfect sense, because what's happening is people are selling their Ethereum or swapping and driving the transaction fees up, because they're, you know, basically paying higher fees the way that the way that the first auction, you know, transaction fee cost built into Ethereum works right now. That's going to change with EIP 1559. But so that's where I get that whole, that's like a plus in a lot of people's eyes. So we'll see how it actually turns out. But yeah, so they're driving the transaction fees up. The block rewards are so much higher now. I think that there's like an average of like 10 Ethereum per block now, which is insane. And that's a huge amount of mining rewards to miners. So that's kind of a silver lining to the whole thing of the, in this video that he's talking about here, Son of a Tech, blind run over on Son of a Tech. He talks about this, you know, crypto revenue over the price, right? So you're looking at how much Ethereum you're actually accumulating, and not really worried so much about the price, because in this case, this instance, you know, you see that the value, the USD value of Ethereum is going down, but the mining rewards are going up. So it's one of the side effects of what's actually happening right now. So it actually benefits miners in this way. So yeah, go check out that video of his over on his channel. And let me look at the actual block rewards here. So if we look at etherscan.io over here, let's do a refresh. Probably don't have to. Yeah, you can see that the block rewards are still pretty high. You know, like by default, it's I think it's like two ether per block, and you're looking at 5. This has gone down a little bit from what I was seeing earlier. We go over here a few pages. I mean, this is still, you know, the 13 second blocks, so there's a lot of pages here. But if you go back quite a few pages, you're probably going to see some, yeah, like there was an 11 there, and you see how it's creeping up here. So as people were dumping and using Uniswap and transferring Ether and selling Ether and going to fiat and stuff, then, you know, these block rewards are going through the roof over there. So another positive side effect as far as mining goes. All right, so I'm gonna check the chat. This has been a long stream. I wanted to do this like super fast, but you know, it's a lot of information, so I kind of had to just cover it. Yeah, smash that like. Thanks, Red Panda. All right, so I don't see anybody tagging me. I think that we're good. I'm gonna call it right here. That's basically 50 minutes? Yeah, 50 minutes. Good grief. Long stream. Long stream. So if you thought that this video, this stream, this live stream was educational, fun, entertaining, whatever, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Click the notification bell. Make sure that you are notified whenever I post a new video or go live. And I will see you guys tomorrow night. Tomorrow night we're breaking down the previous month. Remember, might not be able to withdraw from Nice Hash. We'll see. I usually don't do that during the stream anyway, but we'll still see. Stay savage, everybody. Have a good night.